In 1997, a magazine printed a number that would one day unravel a royal identity. A single digit, buried on page 90 of a glossy teen publication. No one noticed it then. But today, that number threatens to rewrite everything the world thought it knew about Meghan Markle. Not her style, not her marriage, her existence itself. Before Tom Bower became the biographer who made palaces nervous, he was known for one thing: finding the truths people didn't want found. His subjects didn't invite him in, they tried to keep him out. And when he turned his attention to Meghan Markle, he didn't just write a book, he opened a file. A file full of dates that didn't align, stories that bent under scrutiny, and a timeline that, when laid flat, revealed gaps wide enough to drive a royal convoy through. This isn't about whether Meghan is likable. This is about whether the official version of her life is accurate. Because according to Bower, it's not. And the evidence doesn't come from tabloids or conspiracy forums. It comes from printed records, hospital protocols, and the quiet, uncomfortable testimony of a father who says the daughter the world knows is not the daughter he raised. What begins as a simple question, how old is Meghan Markle, becomes something far stranger, a mystery that touches identity, ambition, and the lengths someone might go to in order to fit a narrative the world would accept. Thomas Markle didn't become estranged from his daughter because of money or jealousy. He became estranged because he started talking. Not loudly, not dramatically, but persistently. And what he talked about were memories, memories that didn't match the official timeline. He remembered school years, birthday parties, milestones, and when Meghan's age became public, stamped onto royal announcements and wedding programs, Thomas felt something shift. The numbers were wrong. Not by a year, not by a rounding error, by enough that it changed the story entirely. He didn't go to the press with accusations. He simply hinted, quietly, almost like someone hoping someone else would notice. And eventually, someone did. March 1997, 17 magazine, page 90. A small feature on young hopefuls in America. Among them, Meghan Markle, age 21. Not 15, 21. If that number is correct, Meghan wasn't born in 1981. She was born closer to 1975 or 1976. That would make her 6 years older than the world believes. 6 years older when she married Harry. 6 years older when she became a duchess. 6 years older when she gave birth to Archie. 6 years sounds like much, until you realize it changes everything. Her age when she broke into Hollywood, her age when she landed Suits, her age when she met a prince. Suddenly, the rising starlet narrative, the fresh-faced actress discovering royal love at 36, becomes something else. A woman in her early 40s rebranding her past to fit a younger, more marketable image. The magazine wasn't a rumor. It was printed, distributed, archived, long before Meghan had any reason to manage her public identity, long before anyone cared. And once you see that number, you can't unsee it. But the age discrepancy was only the beginning, because when Tom Bower kept digging, he found something even stranger, something involving Archie's birth. According to Bower, the story Meghan and Harry told the world about their son's arrival wasn't just polished, it was constructed, built like a script. And the more you examine it, the more it stops sounding like a birth and starts sounding like a PR event. Harry's memoir Spared describes the birth in detail. 2 epidurals, a peaceful labor, candles, dim lighting, a wellness ball. And then just 2 hours after delivery, Meghan was home at Frogmore Cottage, glowing and recovered. It reads beautifully, almost too beautifully, because that's not how childbirth works.
Epidurals don't come in pairs. You don't receive two separate doses hours apart like refilling a painkiller prescription. An epidural is administered once. A catheter is placed in your spine and medication flows continuously. The idea of two epidurals medically makes no sense. Then there's the timeline, 2 hours from birth to home. But after an epidural, you can't walk, your legs are numb, you're monitored for hours. Blood pressure, mobility, complications. Even in a perfect scenario, discharge takes time. And Frogmore Cottage is nearly an hour's drive from Portland Hospital. That means everything, the birth, the checks, the paperwork, the recovery, would have had to happen in under 60 minutes. Hospital staff who spoke anonymously didn't call it suspicious, they called it impossible. Megan was over 35 during her pregnancy. In medical terms, that's classified as a geriatric pregnancy. It sounds harsh, but it's a clinical term, and it comes with protocols: extra monitoring, longer observation, more caution. But the birth Harry described didn't reflect that. Candles and dim lighting aren't standard in high-risk deliveries. Hospitals don't allow spa-like atmospheres when a mother's age or health demands close medical attention. And then there's preeclampsia. Harry mentioned it in passing, but preeclampsia isn't a passing detail. It's a life-threatening condition. If Megan showed even early symptoms, the protocol is strict: magnesium sulfate treatments, extended monitoring, bed rest. Not a 2-hour turnaround and a drive through the countryside. The story didn't match the medicine. It matched something else, a narrative, one designed to sound empowering, modern, and graceful, the kind of birth story that photographs well. But reality doesn't bend for branding. So if the birth story was managed, what else was? That's the question Tom Bauer keeps circling back to. And it's not just him asking anymore. People who knew Meghan before fame started speaking, not loudly, not on camera, but in private interviews, in background conversations. They described a woman who was ambitious, strategic, and always aware of how she was perceived. One former colleague said Meghan had a habit of adjusting details, small things: her age in casual conversation, the year she graduated, the timeline of her early acting work. Nothing dramatic, just enough to keep her image fresh, young, marketable. But at the time, it seemed harmless. Hollywood runs on youth. Everyone shaves a year or two off their age. But when you're about to marry into the British royal family, those small adjustments become permanent records, and permanent records can be checked. The British press didn't initially catch the discrepancies. They were too focused on the romance, the modernization of the monarchy, the first biracial duchess. The age question seemed trivial by comparison. But Bauer wasn't interested in the romance. He was interested in the record, and the record he found had holes. School enrollment documents, acting guild registrations, early headshots with dates that didn't align. None of it was conclusive on its own, but together it formed a pattern of someone managing their past to fit their future. And then Bauer found the hospital. Portland is private, elite, discreet. It's where royals and celebrities go when they want privacy during childbirth. But privacy doesn't mean secrecy. The hospital still has rules, protocols, staff who follow procedures whether the patient is a duchess or not. And according to someone familiar with those procedures, the version of events Harry described in Spare didn't happen, at least not the way he said it did. The source wasn't a rogue tabloid employee. They were someone who understood how the hospital operated, and they were careful. They didn't claim Meghan never gave birth. They didn't suggest a surrogate. They simply said the timeline, the medical details, and the described environment didn't match reality. If Meghan truly gave birth at Portland, the experience would have looked different, longer, more monitored, more medical, less like a wellness retreat and more like a hospital. So what actually happened? Bauer doesn't claim to have all the answers, but he does have a theory, and it's not about scandal, it's about control. Meghan and Harry wanted to control their story. They wanted Archie's birth to feel modern, private, and empowering. They wanted to avoid the spectacle of the Lindo Wing steps, where Kate posed with newborns hours after delivery, hair perfect, heels on, cameras flashing. So they told a different story, a quieter one, a more intimate one. And maybe in the process of crafting that story, they smoothed over the parts that didn't fit, the medical reality, the timelines, the details that would have made the story messier, but more truthful. It's not a lie, exactly. It's a narrative. And narratives, by nature, are shaped. But when the narrative involves a royal birth and the details don't hold up under scrutiny, people start to wonder what else was shaped. The age question refuses to disappear. Even as Meghan and Harry moved to California, built a media empire, and distanced themselves from the palace, the 1997 magazine page kept circulating. Fact checkers tried to dismiss it. They called it a misprint, a clerical error. But no one could explain why the error happened, or why it was never corrected, or why, if it was wrong, Meghan never addressed it. And then other pieces started surfacing. Old interviews where Meghan mentioned graduating college earlier than her official timeline suggested, casting calls in the early 2000s that listed her as older than she should have been. Small breadcrumbs, easy to ignore individually, impossible to ignore collectively. Bauer compiled them all, and what he found wasn't proof of deception, it was proof of inconsistency. An inconsistency in a public figure's life is a crack that lets questions in. Here's what we know for certain. Meghan Markle's father has questions about her age. A 1997 magazine lists her as 6 years older than official records. The birth story of her first child contains medical impossibilities, and the woman herself has never directly addressed any of it. Here's what we don't know: whether any of it was intentional, whether it matters, or whether, in the end, this is just the cost of building a public identity in a world that demands perfection. Tom Bauer believes it matters, not because he wants to destroy Meghan, but because he believes the truth, even uncomfortable truth, is worth more than a polished story. And maybe that's the real mystery. Not how old Meghan Markle is, but why, in a world obsessed with authenticity, her story still feels like it's hiding something. The British royal family has survived scandals far larger than this one: abdications, divorces, deaths. But what they've never been good at is ambiguity. Royals are supposed to be knowable, fixed. Their birthdays are national events. Their ages are printed in history books. Meghan introduced something the monarchy wasn't built for: uncertainty. Not just about her intentions, but about her identity itself. And that uncertainty didn't come from the press, it came from the gaps in her own story. Tom Bauer didn't solve the mystery, he just proved it exists. And maybe that's more powerful, because now every time someone sees Meghan's official birth date, they'll remember the magazine, the hospital, the father who quietly said, "That's not what I remember." And they'll wonder, in an age where everything is documented, where every photo is timestamped and every detail is archived, how does someone's past become negotiable? How does a timeline bend? And who gets to decide which version of the truth becomes official? Meghan Markle may never answer those questions, but the fact that they're being asked has already changed the story. Not just hers, but the story we tell ourselves about identity, image, and the price of reinvention. The mystery isn't closed, it's just waiting for someone to care enough to open the file again.